Alright, what we're going to be doing this morning is putting together apple puffs or apple fritters, as your competency list calls them. They're pretty much the same thing. Used as a breakfast item, could be used as a dessert. This is just a basic dough. You can interchange whatever fruit you would like inside of these to create a different flavor or a different item. We do have one correction that we're going to make to this recipe. I would like everybody to add 1 teaspoon of salt to their batter, add it in with the dry ingredients. So make sure you make that correction before you go over to the kitchen and get started. You will each receive a recipe. I'm going to demo this for you now, and then we're going to go over to the kitchen and you guys are going to work in teams of 2 to prepare these apple puffs. You can see here I have all my ingredients mise en place, everything singly measured out and in its own container so that you can see each item that is going in. I have 2 bowls, one of which has a rubber spatula in it, the second one has a whisk in it. You are going to need both of these, so make sure you get them for each group. As your recipe states, what you are going to do is you're going to add all of your dry ingredients into one bowl. Your 1.5 cups of flour, your 1/4 cup of sugar, your 3/4 teaspoon, and make sure you use a teaspoon of baking powder, your cinnamon, which is 1 teaspoon. Make sure you get all of that out. It might stick to your bowl a little bit. Then you're going to add, as I had said, your increase or your add-on to the recipe, 1 teaspoon of salt. Okay, and very easily just kind of mix this together just to get all your ingredients blended well. Okay, next thing we're going to do is in a second bowl, take our eggs, and again, make sure you get all your eggs out, or these might not hold together, might not fry properly. And then my milk. And again, we're going to just lightly mix this to blend them together. This is going to be a very quick process once you get your mise en place together. Now, what we're going to do is something called the muffin mixing method, which is where we take our dry ingredients and add our wet ingredients to them. Okay? You always want to add your moist into your wet so that you do not get or your moist into your dry, so you do not get clumps and lumps. And again, pour it in, and you're going to mix this just until it's combined. If you over mix it, they're going to become very tough. Okay, so just mix until combined. So that's the first step. That is what your batter should look like. Get rid of your whisk and your other mixing bowl and all your empty containers. And then we'll move on to step number 2. Alright, the next thing we're going to do here, you could peel your apples by hand with a peeler, but we have this apple peeling, slicing, and pouring machine that's going to make your job a lot easier. You notice that the 3 prongs are all the way through the front right now. The part that it's sticking through is actually the blade. This part you'll notice here that goes up and down is what peels the apple. And back here is the lever in order to kind of release everything. Pull this lever and pull your handle back, and that will let these prongs come all the way back. Now to put your apple on, doesn't matter what end you put on the prongs, just make sure that it is centered around the seeds. Okay, make sure it goes on straight. Now what you're going to do is just spin this handle. You need to watch your apple as you do that to make sure you get most of the peel off. You might have to use a paring knife to remove a little bit excess peel that might be left on there. But very simply, kind of hold the base of this because it is going to move around on you a little bit, and spin your handle, and you'll see your apple will start to move towards the peeling side of it. And go nice and slow, don't rush through it. Try and get as much of the peel off right now as you can. That way you're not going through and re-peeling a lot off. You'll notice as I do this, it's already starting to cut it. If this peel here that's coming off gets in your way, just remove it and get it out of your way. That way it's not going to hinder your peeling and cutting of the apple. Make sure you go the whole way through the cut, and then very simply, just slide your apple off. Okay, now that is not done. You can see we still have a little bit of a peel on there. What I'm going to do now is do my second apple, and again, pull this lever, slide this rod back, put your apple on, hold it in place. Make sure you don't have any excess peels in there that might make it stick. And if you get a soft spot, you might have to kind of back it off and cut through it, or go back later and cut it off. For these apple puffs today, we're using some Red Delicious apples. You could use a different variety if you would like, Granny Smith, anything that you would like. This apple here that I'm doing has a couple soft spots on it, so it's not peeling that well. Now, to finish the apple again, we have a couple spots on here that we're going to have to remove the rest of the skin. Very simply, I'm going to use my paring knife. Be careful not to, cut your finger or nick yourself. And you don't have to get every little bit of peel off, but get as much as you possibly can. Sometimes the peels on these apples can be a little bit chewy, and inside of the puffs, obviously you're going to be able to taste the skin in there. Now, we can't put the apple in there, cut in a spiral like it is. We have to cut these up. So the easiest way to do that is to just kind of go around the apple. If you want to cut it in half so it lays down flat, that's fine. And then you're just going to cut it into very small pieces. You don't want these pieces to be very large. They will hinder the frying of these. You want them to be relatively small. If you get a very large apple, you might have to cut your recipe down to just one. But for today, we are going to use the 2 apples because these ones are a little bit smaller. If you do have some brown spots on your apple, that's okay. Don't worry about trying to cut them out or cut around them. Now, if it's severely soft, and kind of gooey, yeah, you do want to cut that out. But the ones that I just had here were okay. So now we need to take our batter, and we're going to very simply just add all of our apples in at once using our spatula. Again, you do not want to over mix, just kind of fold it in. When you fold, you get your spatula under and kind of flip it up and over. You don't want to over mix these again, so just do it kind of till your apples are combined and into your batter. You don't want them free floating around. Once you've folded them in, you're ready to go on to frying. Alright, now when we fry these, I have the fryer preheated right now. I know your recipe says 375 degrees. We're going to cut that back a little bit to 315 just to make sure that these cook the whole way through. You don't want to have a gooey product on the inside that isn't cooked. So we're going to back the heat off just a little bit. We're using just a blended oil. If you want to use a canola, a vegetable, you're more than welcome to, especially if you're making these at home or later on. What we're going to use to scoop these out are these black handled and black bottom portion scoops. Just going to do one level scoop into the fryer. When you do this, notice how I keep my hand close to the fryer. Make sure that there's no big drip offs. You do not want this dropping onto your hand or splashing the grease on your hand. Very gently close to the fryer, and then you're going to kind of push the button and it will drop through. Notice I do not have the fryer baskets in here. You could do it either way, with or without the fryer baskets. The fryer baskets are going to help to keep it in place. Continue scooping these out until you get all of your batter done, and you notice how they're starting to rise to the top. They are not done yet. We will be having to Flip these over once or twice just to make sure that they're fried on all sides, and you can see them starting to kind of pop back up into the oil. You know, they did not get stuck underneath. I have a little spoon here that's hanging up with all the other utensils, has holes in the bottom, used for doing products in the fryer like this. That way you can kind of roll them around, turn them, and scooping them out without taking all of the oil out. Okay, these have been frying for about 3 minutes now. I've kind of flipped them around a couple times as they were cooking. You'll see when I pull them out, you start to get a nice golden brown color on these. I've kind of been pouring the oil like so over them just to keep them frying on both sides as they're in the oil. They are done now. When you pull them out, again, you could use the fryer basket to scoop these out if you want, or these spoons again make it nice and easy to scoop your product out. Let the oil drain really good, and then we're going to drop these onto the paper towels. The paper towels are used to absorb the rest of the oil that we might not be shaking off of them. You do not want a oily or greasy product, so you want to get as much off of there as possible. Again, nice golden brown color on them. To finish them, very simply, once you get them all fried, take your sifter, has this green handle that turns on the side, and give your apple puffs a nice little coating. And that is your finished product. You are more welcome to try them, divide them amongst your team that you're working in, and enjoy.